Hi, welcome to Truth Wanted. We search for proof of gods, ghosts, aliens, or any other questionable claims. But you know what? We haven't found any yet. Do you have the evidence we've been looking for? Well, then call us tonight because the show is starting right now. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Kelley Laughlin, and this is a live call-in show that happens every single week on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. Now, if you'd like to call us, we would love to have you do that, and you can get a hold of us at 1-512-991-9242 or through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And my very special guest here today is the incomparable student Dr. Ben. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right. It's been a while since I've been on Truth Wanted. I think I've only been on the show one other time, and I'm very excited to be back here, especially with you. I've maybe done one or two nonprofits with you, but we haven't been on a lot of shows together. So I'm excited
No.
for this one.
Yeah, this is our first live show together. I'm actually looking really forward to it. Yeah. So, Ben, I know you're a really busy person. What do you got in the works for us right now?
Yeah, so of course I'm hanging out a lot over on Talk Heathen. So I'm sure if you're all in the side chat here, then you've made your way over to Talk Heathen at one time or another. But I am a host over there. I'm not sure when the next time I'm on is. It's kind of in the near future. Sometimes I show up on the nonprofits, and then when I'm not doing that, I'm about to graduate from medical school. So tonight's the night if you want to talk to an almost doctor, because this branding at the bottom, the student Dr. Ben, that's only a limited time offer. You can only get this for the next 20 something days, and then that's going away forever. So if you want to talk to a student doctor, you can tonight. And I'm really excited that Kelley's here because I want to talk about crystals, and I see you all in the side chat right now. And if any of you believe that crystals can heal you, please call in tonight.
Yeah, I would love to talk about some crystals. Ben, I know you talk a lot about pseudoscience and pseudo medicine. You want to give us, speak about that a little bit right now?
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes around on the internet, and especially something that really, really bugs me. And I don't know if people understand why this is a problem, but even lay people giving random medical advice to their friends on the internet, it seems like you're trying to do a really nice thing. It seems like you're trying to help somebody out. But the problem is, even if it will most likely be okay, it might not be. You don't know the whole story, even if it is your best friend in the world. So if you're not educated in a particular subject and you don't have the licensure to be held accountable for the things that you say, the internet really is a rough place to talk about medicine. And I know you've seen a lot of people talk about crystal healing because of your experience. I have a lot of arguments about Reiki. I've actually done for one of my shows, I've done a stream where it was Richard Gilliver, Secular Rarity, Phoebe Rose, and I all took a Reiki class online. And it was a really, really interesting video. But we've had calls on Talk Heathen about Reiki and someone believing that their back pain was cured by Reiki. And people who are otherwise skeptical using their intuition and saying, well, hey, based on the mechanism that I've read about, this doesn't seem too far off. And the problem is that most of the time, our science education, even at an undergraduate level, is incomplete. It's very overly simplified. And I talk about this a lot with any topic when you are engaging in skepticism, and when you're engaging with any claim that someone brings you, intuition can be dangerous because all of us have gaps in our education and gaps in our knowledge. And it's dangerous when I say I did a logic in my brain and got from A to C, but I have no clue what B is. And that's the what I'd really like to play with is what other variables can be factored into this equation, and did I get this correct? Like, I might be correct in that the Reiki played a part in my healing process, but what was the other factor? Was it the Reiki itself? Was it that I was feeling more relaxed and was not thinking about all my stress in that day? Was it something else that I did before walking into the Reiki appointment? Like, there are many different variables to take into account. And I think intuition, while it can be useful sometimes, it's a great starting point. Like, intuition is a great launching point to asking more questions and doing more investigation. So that's kind of what I talk about a lot.
I know, like a Reiki, and I don't know what they call it, studio, is set up to be very relaxing. The lighting is lower. You got some nice soft music going on. And it seems to me that that might be a big part of it. Now, another part is maybe placebo effects. Now, I get a lot of people that talk to me about placebos because of the crystals. And I would love, because you're a real doctor, I would love to hear your take on that.
Yeah, the placebo effect is legitimate. People think that they are doing something good by getting these crystals and going to Reiki therapy and doing cupping and all these other things. But yeah, the problem is, how do we verify that that was the actual cause? And with crystals, I fail to see a mechanism by which a crystal would heal. Because if you're going to establish causality, you have to, number one, have a mechanism that could even be possible. And number two, you have to demonstrate that that is a variable that is necessary and sufficient to make a treatment happen. So in both of those facets, I've not seen crystal healing work, but all I hear is subjective improvement, which is fine. Like, subjective improvement is important for how you engage with your treatment and how you engage with your illness or your injury or whatever. But that can only go so far. Like, I could have, if I'm having a heart attack, I could have subjective improvement. Like, yeah, my pain is feeling better, but I cannot undo a blood clot or undo stenosis of my coronary vessels with a crystal. So that's where it becomes dangerous, I think, is when people think that the subjective experience is the same thing or better than the objective mechanism. So that's I think the big issue.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Like again, like I say, I get people talk to me about placebos all the time. Before we move on, though, I forgot that we wanted to give you last week's results of We Want the Truth, or the WWTT segment. And we had asked people, complete this sentence, wrong answers only. If you come back as a ghost, what is the first thing you would do? And here are our favorite answers. Number 3 from Bradley Turton. If I come back as a ghost, the first thing I would do is get onto Truth Wanted to see if I had the evidence to convince the host that I existed. And that would be great, Bradley. We would love to have you come back as a ghost guest. That would be amazing. Number 2, Eric, the Manic Pixie Dream Atheist, says, the first thing that I would do if I came back as a ghost is pretend I was Paul. And our number 1 answer this week comes from Chuck Gatos. As a ghost, I'd show up at my funeral and give a rebuttal to the eulogy. Now, the prompt for this week is invent a useless superpower. Ben, do you have an idea of what a useless superpower would be?
I mean, well, I picked something that is, it's not necessarily useless entirely, but it's only useful in a set context. So much that you could not even verify that it was a real power. But my power would be the ability to always put the USB in the correct way on the first try. And that's what I would pick.
That's awesome. I think everybody wants that power. That's pretty funny.
What was yours?
Mine, I was thinking that I might want to turn into something, and I was thinking, remember the super twins and the being able to turn into water? That seems like such a useless thing, but there's got to be things even more useless than that, like maybe turn into a frying pan.
I mean, it'd still be useful as a frying pan. Somebody would find some use in that.
I just don't know that it would be useful as a superpower, really. Right? You're not going to stop a villain with it, that's for sure.
That's true.
Unless Superman picks you up and whacks him in the head with you.
That's true. You could turn into a healing crystal if you really wanted.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I could heal people.
Except you couldn't. It would just be a crystal.
Well, like people would think I could, though, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So they think you could, but you couldn't actually. That'd be interesting.
So Ben, you mentioned that you do your own videos. Do you want to tell us the name of your channel and a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I've got a channel on YouTube called Student Dr. Ben. Again, that's about to change. My branding is all going to change. But my show specifically is called Medical Myths, and we talk about these kinds of subjects. And tomorrow I'm talking about an interesting topic that not many people may have heard of. But this idea of fraudulent medical boards, and this is particularly used by, I've seen chiropractors using this, where they will set up a pseudo-legitimate organization to try to convince the public that they're knowledgeable and licensed. The ones I've seen that I'm particularly going to discuss are chiropractic internists, which an internist is an internal medicine physician, which has usually a 3-year residency after med school and possibly some fellowships after that. So a legitimate physician. I've also seen chiropractic neurologists, which is an interesting topic and super dangerous. We're also going to talk about certain people. There's other organizations that are similar to or sound similar to the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's known as the American College of Pediatrics, which is it's a primarily Christian-run organization promoting anti-abortion lobbying, anti-trans lobbying, and that kind of thing. But they present themselves as a licensed medical board, which is really scary.
Yeah, didn't excuse me, I might be totally wrong in this, but didn't Rand Paul start his own ophthalmology board too? Because he was rejected by the real one, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Oh, good. Awesome. Anytime you talk about Rand Paul and his goofiness, I love to hear it. So
yeah, it's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah. So what do you have any plans for anything else in the future that you'd like to talk about on your show? Any other hot topics?
We have a lot of different topics that we go over. Just anything that's a medical myth. So anything that can be medically adjacent. I do have one I want to do in the near future with Secular Rarity, because he's a repeat guest on my show. I get him for everything weird I want to talk about. I get Secular Rarity. So we're gonna do one about weird enemas. So if anyone wants to call in tonight about coffee enemas, I'm happy to engage with that conversation. There's a whole crowd of people that suggest that coffee enemas will cure whatever diseases. There's also actually a recent one I just saw yesterday. There's 2 ladies on TikTok that have a video about why they've stopped washing their hands. And it's this whole story. And I just have to say, for everyone in the audience, please wash your hands. Yes, there's no good reason to stop washing your hands. You need to wash your hands.
You know, you bring up the enema thing, and I cut and polish stones too. And I had a woman once call me up and ask me if I could make a jade enema for her.
Oh, good.
Because she thought the energy of the jade would be good for that. So
yeah, jade eggs are a fun one to talk about as well, because people will put them in various orifices on their body, and they are not easy to sterilize because people don't understand how porous jade can be, and you can get a lot of stuff in your body that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest it unless you have an autoclave in the back room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an autoclave in your back room?
I don't.
Oh,
maybe I should invest.
I would love to have one, just to have one, honestly, so people could look at it and go, "What the hell is that thing?"
Yeah, maybe when I get some doctor money, I can get my own autoclave and sell some jade eggs. That was the first
time I ever saw an autoclave. That's what I did. What the hell is that thing? I had a friend that did he was a phlebotomist for many years.
Oh yeah.
And he quit doing that and started body piercing instead, which was basically the same thing, right? Sticking people with needles.
Sure, yeah, same thing.
All right. Well, we should probably take a few calls here, but before we do, I want to shout out to our patron of the week. I got totally tongue-tied there. That's one of my things that I do nowadays as I'm getting older. And every week we like to shout out to a patron that donates through tiny.cc/PatreonTW for supporting the show, because we really appreciate it when people do that. And this week's patron of the week is, drum roll please, it is Gee Whiz, is short for Jesus Wizard. That's quite a long name, but thank you so much. Gee Whiz is short for Jesus Wizard. We really appreciate you supporting us. And if you want to get your name up here, you can support us too at Patreon. So please do.
That's such a great name. I love that name.
Yeah, it was a great name, right? And now I think we should probably take some calls.
Let's do it.
All righty here. My well, there you go.
For you? Or you got it?
Well, how about that? All right. We're going to take Natasha here from Texas. Hi, Tasha. Natasha says you want to talk about the restrictive nature of religion for psychopaths.
Yeah, I have met someone that I believe was a psychopath, and we were discussing religion, and he expressed to me that if he did not believe in religion, that he would then be free to do anything he wanted, and the only thing that kept these crimes was his belief that God would get him. And so I'm wondering, if one of the very psychopaths from these, and if the world became all atheist, what could we possibly put in place to restrict them? Any thoughts?
This is a very interesting topic, and actually, like, as I've done rotations in psychiatry, and there's some legitimate things we need to talk about here with regard to conduct disorder and antisocial personality disorder. And I'm not a psychiatrist. People who struggle with these should have somebody that they can go to about this. But it's an interesting topic when we're talking to someone who's religious, because I know a lot of people that bring up this particular argument, or even they'll bring up the topic of like, everyone knows what morality is, and everybody knows what's right and wrong, and that's why we all know that God exists. And I like to bring up antisocial personality disorder for this reason, because some people do not have a concept of what morality is, and it's not necessarily and I hate the fact that it's so stigmatized, because oftentimes it is, and it is of no fault of this person. These people are not doing anything wrong that they know of. Their brains work a little bit differently than ours, and so a lot of times when you're approaching people like this, and when I hear people bring up this argument, oftentimes it's the other person, the person making this claim, isn't actually a person with conduct disorder or antisocial personality disorder. Oftentimes it's somebody who is knee deep into religion, to where they just don't understand why you could have morals and not being religious. So I'm probably going to say that I'm going to assume that this person doesn't have the disorder and is just making the argument. But in the cases of people, like, to answer a question, for people who have the inability to think through ethical issues or moral dilemmas, how we often approach this is with social consequences. And so even if there isn't a deity to say you can't do this or you're going to hell, we can utilize things like social consequences. And like with children, I've seen some patients who are kids that don't have a concept of morality. So how do you raise a child who can't grasp that? You utilize consequences. And unfortunately, the best thing we have in our system right now is to let them have an experience with law enforcement, which is a very unfortunate thing. And I hope that we can find something better to where they don't need to have those run-ins with law enforcement to face those consequences. But oftentimes you have to give them the connection in their brain of, I do this action, I get this punishment. And yeah, it might not be a supernatural one, but I do this thing and this person doesn't want to be friends with me anymore. Or I do this thing and I lose my job. I lose my house. You lose something, and you don't need supernatural consequences in order to enforce the idea of consequences for people that need them. Kelley, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. I don't know that I think if you're talking about what do we use to replace religion for this problem? I think science, right? Does that make any sense? We don't. I realize that
No.
religion helps a lot of people with psychopathology. Would that be the correct word there? But I don't know that it's. I know it helps them on the short term sometimes, like get through a day. But in the long term, it's not really healing anything or really helping in the long term. So I would hope that maybe we can get religion completely out of mental health care, so that we can actually get people help instead of pseudo help, if that makes sense.
I was saying, my concern is that this person seemed very efficiently restricted from committing crimes and I can't imagine a law enforcement regime that would be as efficient as that.
I'm not talking about a law enforcement
more for
regime, though. I'm talking about going to the heart of the problem and making it so that this person doesn't feel like they have to go out and commit these crimes, dealing with the psychopathology instead of dealing with the morality of it. Actually tackle the medical problem, right?
Identifying the problem early and healing it before the crimes begin.
Yes.
That's essentially what we do with children because conduct disorder is a condition that you get as a child. So you don't get antisocial personality disorder as a child. That's specifically adults. So you diagnose it. Hopefully, you diagnose it as a child, and then you can give them psychiatric treatment before it develops into an antisocial personality disorder. These are kind of contiguous conditions, and this is a very nuanced topic, and I appreciate you bringing in this kind of a discussion because I honestly don't think that the system we have is the right way to go. I think it's the best that we have right now, but absolutely I think we should do better because unfortunately what we get is these kids with conduct disorder who end up going to juvie at young ages, and then they just end up getting lost in this law enforcement system. Mm-hmm. And I agree that it's very dehumanizing for those people who aren't operating, like they're operating in a way that is not typical for society and not normative for society, but their brains don't know any different in that case. They can't process that. So is it fair to dehumanize somebody who has that going on? And no, it's not. I wish we could find something better. I don't entirely know what the right answer is, but it's not necessarily religion because now you're adding in something that we can't even verify is true. Do we add something false just to keep somebody in line? I don't know if that's a better alternative. I mean, it might be humanistically better. I could see why potentially it could be more humanizing than locking them up forever, but it's still not a good solution. It is not an end goal of a solution. So we should look beyond all of what we have right now, hopefully, and get to something better within the medical science, where Kelley is going, trying to say, what can we do to impact the brain chemistry so that they don't need these drastic interventions.
Right, so that they don't feel the need to go out and do these antisocial behaviors. And you mentioned that kids getting lost in the system, and that happens so much. And I think a lot of times the judicial system that we have in place right now, at least in the United States, makes criminals often. We take kids who can probably be a lot better and put them in a situation where all they're learning is how to be a good criminal. And I think that's wrong. So I don't think the judicial system or criminal incarceration is the way to solve this problem at all. We had a young man that was a friend of my son's that had been kicked out of his house. He wouldn't take his medication, and he would have these episodes because he wasn't on the medication. And we tried to help him out. We came and let him stay with us for a little while, but he went out to a local store while he was staying with us and had an episode, ended up getting locked up, and he's been locked up ever since. That was over 2 years ago. So, and he's not locked up in an institution. He's locked up in jail. And the jail definitely isn't helping him. So we gotta not throw kids into that type of environment, because it's not helping him. He's not getting anywhere near the help that he needs. He's not a criminal. He's mentally ill.
Yeah, Natasha, let me ask you, are you religious? Like, where do you stand on this?
I was raised in a very interesting way. My parents never told me their beliefs. They expected me to develop my own in my own way. And I had decided atheist. So I have my own unique point of view on everything because I didn't join a group that taught me things. However, I have observed, and if you'll allow me a second question, when I talk to a lot of religious people, it seems to me that they have no practice in making their own moral judgments. They very much rely on what they were taught without ever thinking it through. Being raised in a religion actually prevents you from developing a moral sense. Any idea? I'm just trying to figure this one out.
I think you're correct in some instances. I think there are good and bad morals in most religions. I don't want to condemn a whole religion as being bad morals, because there are some good. Slavoj Žižek, he's a Serbian philosopher, he says that he's an atheist Christian because he doesn't believe in any of the supernatural things that are there, but he thinks that Christ had some good things to say that if people followed them would make our society a little bit better. So there are some good morals in there. I don't think that everything in religion is good, though.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is the process of being raised in a religion preventing people from naturally developing their own moral judgment.
I think,
if you're handed everything, do you not develop the practice of thinking everything through with your own compassion and empathy?
Yeah, I could see that being true. But also kind of going along with that, I noticed my own upbringing was very conservative, fundamentalist, evangelical. And the shift from being raised with such black and white thinking about morality to learning about the shades of gray and everything was kind of a shock to me. And I think it is for a lot of people. And I think that's what ends up being an issue. I think if you're raised to think about black and white issues, like this is absolutely okay 100% of the time, and this is absolutely not okay 100% of the time, and not leaving room for gray, it's very hard to adapt to going out and seeing a situation where somebody might have to steal in order to feed their family. And like, hold on, well, stealing is bad. but people dying is also bad. So what's the right answer? And too often in the real world, there is no right answer. There's only bad answers, and it's just which is the least bad option to go with. And like that's oftentimes how my thought process is in medicine. Nothing is black and white, but you have people even trying to leave religion that adhere to some of these more outdated ideas because they can't get past the black and white thinking. They would think this is right 100% of the time, or it isn't. And that's not how we can really engage with the world. So I think I do agree with you on that.
That's very insightful, Ben.
Any other thoughts, Natasha?
Yeah. Natasha?
No. I just I have this odd hobby where I ask everyone I meet the same question for a week. And last week I asked people how they made moral judgments. Something as simple as, will I hold the door for a stranger who's carrying packages? And very religious people would sometimes answer the Bible. And I would say, do you carry a Bible with you? Flip through it to the right page and then make the decision? Or is it some other way? And everyone, upon questioning, will fall down to, I had empathy for the person, so I opened the door. So I'm guessing that we develop our moral sense or our moral decisions from compassion and empathy. But yeah, you guys are great. I love your show, and I am learning so much. But that's all I had this week.
I wish I could say it was mine, but it's Dan's. But yeah, and I think that's a really cool hobby. I'd love to. I would love to see some of the data you collect with that. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that compassion and that empathy. And it's been my experience that a lot of those same people don't see the shades of gray. They only see the black and white. Is that something that's been a part of your experience, Natasha or Ben?
I haven't collected data on that.
All right. Yeah. It's just something that, and I don't know if it's true or not. It's just something that I've noticed. So it's just, I don't have any real data on it. Just kind of an observation. Ben, do you have any, have you ever seen that?
I don't have any objective data.
Yes. Yeah. Neither do I.
I do see the mindset, and it kind of goes along with what I talked about with intuition and our brains desire the least resistance to get to whatever answer. And so a black and white method of thinking is a very low resistance way to get to an answer, whether it be a correct answer or not. And if you have shades of gray, it's much more difficult to think through. You have to put energy into processing that, and you have to be willing to say, I don't know what the right answer is. And so, yeah, I think just we as humans gravitate towards that easier answer. And it takes work to undo that. It takes work to counteract the patterns that your brain already wants to make and say, no, this is a bad way to think about it. And I think if we do this with more things in life, and that's why we even have this show, is kind of overcoming the bias and heuristics that we're going to naturally think as humans with imperfect brains. So I really enjoyed this conversation.
And it's not easy to do that. It's really not. I always say it's easier to learn things than it is to unlearn them. But you have to want to unlearn them. If you want to make the world a better place and yourself a better person, these are things you do have to work on and get rid of these biases.
Absolutely.
All right. Do you have any last words, Ben or Natasha, before we move on?
No, thanks for the show.
Oh, well, thank you, Natasha. It was a wonderful call. I really appreciate you calling, and you have a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you for calling in.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Now, let's take a break for a little minute. And if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by donating to our Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTW. There's a couple of different tiers there, and you can get your name shouted out during the show if you donate, just like we did earlier. You can also support the show by becoming a member. You get emojis in the chat, your name gets highlighted, and you will be immune to the chat timeouts. And you go from being your name goes from being black to a really cool Kelley green. So, and it only costs just 99 cents a month, just 99 cents. So go ahead and do it and help us keep funding these shows, because they really do help a lot of people out. And we are going to move on to our next call. We're going to take Xavier in Florida. And he's been practicing Qigong since becoming a Taoist to balance energy in the body to the energy that's in the universe. And it says it helps his mood and breathing. So, hi, Xavier, how you doing?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm good, thank you.
What would you like to talk about?
So,
can I ask one question before we get started? And forgive me if I'm being pedantic, but what exactly do you mean by energy?
That's going to be my question.
The life force of the body, the life force of the universe, that which gives us life. So that the electrochemical impulses, or? Well, no, because then that's just electricity and matter. It's the universal life force that makes us alive, that makes us us.
Yeah, I want to ask you more about this, but tell us your story of
yes,
of
go
why.
ahead.
Yeah, so what's your specific topic?
Tell us how Qigong has helped.
Yeah, I've been doing Qigong, and ever since I've been balancing my energies more with like the universe, I've been feeling so much better. I feel more in tune. Like I feel healthier. I've gotten less sick. I think it's a legitimate medical practice. I wouldn't call it medical science, but it's been practiced for thousands of years. And I just feel more in tune with my body. And yeah, I wish there were more of this in the United States, like more centers to practice Qigong. But I just want to share my story.
Yeah, can you tell me specifically what did Qigong do to what specific symptoms did you have that were improved? I know you said that your mood, but mood is very subjective, right? So my mood can change at the drop of a hat, right? I talk to somebody, I have a good conversation, my mood's great. I can have a bad conversation, my mood's bad. So I don't know if mood is super reliable of a factor, but what other aspects of your health do you think were improved by Qigong?
I've been getting less colds. I used to get colds a lot, and like feeling depressed. I just feeling down.
So how did you determine that you got fewer colds?
I started practicing 15 minutes every morning, and then 15 minutes every evening, and so after doing that for a couple of months, I would get cold like maybe I get colds once a month, and my body would shut down.
Did you document? Did you document the colds that you had before you did Qigong? Did you have a diary that you wrote up? This is when I got sick. Here's how many days it lasted. Here's my symptoms during that. Did you document?
Or even just kept a journal?
No, I wasn't. I didn't know I would go into Taoism this deeply, so I wasn't prepared for that.
So here's my concern though, is you're making a claim that you had colds once a month and then now you don't after starting Qigong, which, I mean, a cold is it's very difficult to diagnose a cold, right? It's very non-specific symptoms, like things like congestion, things like respiratory distress, etc. They're very non-specific symptoms, and I can chalk them up to a variety of disease processes, right? And if you're not documenting what you had, it's very easy to forget exactly how many days go by between certain illnesses, or you think back and our memories are not very good, right? So I'm hesitant to to say that this did or did not have an effect because I don't know what the data is going into it, right? All I have is a subjective improvement. But do you think that your memory was perfect in remembering every time that you had a cold?
Oh yeah, it was like once or twice a month at least. And
You
and
think
now
your memory was?
I don't
You
get them
think
at
your
all.
memory was perfect? You think you remember everything that happened, exactly the duration of your colds before you started Taoism?
And they were like 3 to 5 days long, stuffy nose, going into work feeling like my sinuses are full, only breathing
Okay.
through one nose, those types of minor symptoms all throughout. But after practicing Qigong and really putting my body in its full force with the Tao of the, I
So
really
have
don't
you
get them.
documented?
And I haven't had to have sick days
Have you
at
documented
work.
the time between illness now? Have you documented? Because you might not remember. How do I know that you're remembering everything correctly?
I don't think. I mean, there's no way for you to know because you're
Right.
not in my
No,
life.
that's exactly my. That's
Yeah.
exactly my point. That's exactly my point. Like, is your subjective experience good to base reality off of? Like, should I change my belief system based on your subjective experience, knowing that the human brain shortcuts and the human brain doesn't always remember things correctly? Like, even small things like I run trivia nights sometimes, and there are certain things that you think you know very well in your brain that you just don't, because your brain fills in gaps where you don't remember it. Like the color of Donald Duck's tie or whatever is like, or a hat. I don't even remember what he wears, but the color of Donald Duck's clothing, you can think back and you think it's one color, it might be a different one. Same thing with the FedEx logo. I had a question about the FedEx logo, if the E and the EX was green or orange, and nobody can remember. There are some trucks that are different trucks that have different colors, but your brain can misremember things. So the point is, like, if I'm going to prove whether or not that Qigong has helped you not get colds, I need some more concrete evidence. I need something that demonstrates that this had a physical effect, and this is a predictable effect that we'd see. If I were to start Qigong, would I experience the same effect, or is that limited to you? How would I determine that?
I guess you would have to do a scientific study. That's the Western, epistemology to just documentation and observation. But there are diaries. This goes back thousands of years. It's a practice, and that was brought up pretty much in ancient China for millennia.
But
I'm actually real familiar with the history. I actually did Kung Fu for about 12 years when I was younger until I broke my back, and I practiced Qigong myself. So I kind of understand where you're coming from. And I want to propose another idea to you. Qigong is exercise, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing a regular daily regimen of exercise. Do you think that's helping boost your immune response?
Yeah, of course. Exercise is part of.
Okay, so is it the Qigong, or is it just the exercise in the form of Qigong?
Well, exercise is part of the Qigong. So yeah, but definitely the exercise too.
Yeah, that's what I'm just wondering if you ever thought that it might be the exercise that's boosting your immune response and keeping you from getting sick as much. The exercise itself, not the Qigong, but the exercise.
Right. Yeah. Because exercise brings you in closeness with the universe, in a more efficient manner.
I'm not sure how lifting weights brings you closer to the universe. So I'm not sure that exercise will bring you closer to the universe. But yeah, I don't know if you're understanding what I'm saying. If you were doing Qigong and you were just lifting weights every day, do you think that would help you boost your immune response? And were you exercising before you started doing the Qigong?
Yeah, but not not all the time, but it's not. Well, Qigong isn't heavy exercise like you're thinking. Like it's not cardio or it's not anaerobic or aerobic exercise. These are just, these are minor physical movements where you just move your body and balance these energies. It's not like
I'm going to have to disagree with that, because some of the Qigong I was taught was very physically.
Well, there are heavier, a lot of heavier elements and practices.
So I want to play
minor ones too.
I kind of want to play a little bit of a game with you, Xavier. So I get that the claim is you previously weren't doing Qigong and you had gotten sick a lot of the time. Now you are practicing it and now you're getting sick less. So I want to do a little experiment. Have you watched the TV show House by chance?
No.
So there's a point in it where, and this is something that we do in medicine, where we think through a differential diagnosis. So we have somebody comes in with subjective complaints. They tell me exactly what they believe is going on, their whole story of what happened to bring them in. And then I take that information in conjunction with the objective evidence, and we think through a list of possibilities of what this could be. And so I think what has happened is we've related two variables together, and we haven't really considered other variables. Like just now we brought up exercise as being a component. And I love that you're considering that exercise as a component. Let's add some more to this, because if we just say, yeah, well, I had this experience and this was a thing that I did around that same time, that must be related. But that might not be true. There might be other factors. So let's think through, what are some ways, some things in general, what are some things that could have prevented you from getting sick? Let's think of three things. So we got one is the exercise. You started exercising more. What's something else that could have made you get sick less?
Qigong.
Okay, so we'll add the spiritualism of Qigong. So we'll say the universe energy and your body's energy being more aligned. We'll say that that's a differential. All right, let's add two more. So we have some variety. So we got exercise, we've got spiritual energy, we've got what else we got? What can we add?
I can think of one.
I mean, I guess nutrition, but I haven't really changed my diet.
Yeah, that could do it. So it's a variable there. Kelly, did you? I think
that was what I was thinking, was diet.
Thinking nutrition?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So,
well, my other thought was coincidental exposure to disease, or even being around more people. Did you start Qigong recently among people's improved hygiene practices with the lovely virus that was going around for a while? More people were.
No.
You don't think that factored in?
through video, because there aren't a lot of Qigong centers in Florida that I'm aware of. I'm a public school teacher.
Not even just that.
I think that's the point I was making.
Well, not even with Qigong. I'm saying in general in life. Did you spend less time around other people? Did you spend less time in public spaces during that time?
No. I'm just a regular public school teacher. I'm always around kids.
But do you think
I've added to my routine. I haven't changed anything. I've added to my routine. I've added Qigong.
So you haven't increased. You haven't been more cautious since the viral thing.
Right. Yeah.
When did you start Qigong?
I wore my mask like I was told to, but like with everybody else.
When did you start Qigong?
About 2 years ago.
Okay, so you started kind of in the middle of the pandemonium with the virus that was having people locked down. So I'm already seeing some things that may have changed that you might not even be conscious that changed. Because there are things within our own lives that we might not even recognize were different, but happen to be. Like, let's say you end up getting more stressed and you end up working more hours. You forget that, oh yeah, I haven't seen my best friend in several weeks. I used to go out with this best friend a lot, and now I don't see them. But I haven't thought about that. I don't remember anything consciously changing my life. But maybe I was more lonely this past few weeks because I haven't seen my best friend. Like there are things in our lives that slip our memory, and I think that that's kind of what's happening here. And I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure that Qigong isn't the cause. But the problem is that now we've added more variables. So now, now that we have 4 things in addition to or 3 things in addition to Qigong, so 4 things total that are variables, and I'm sure we could add more. How do we then take these variables and figure out their level of contribution? How do we determine what the cause is?
I guess you can determine the causes.
Yeah. So out of what we talked about, how do we determine if any of these are contributing or not?
Wow. You would have to line up a bunch of Taoists and a bunch of non-Taoists. Maybe observe their lifestyles.
Okay.
I agree with you. Those other aspects are part of it. I'm not denying that none of those were factors, but it seems like you're saying, like, absolutely definitive. Taoism or Qigong has nothing to do with your, like. That's not what
I'm saying. No, and I agree with you. What you just said there about getting people together. You've now started to build a study, and I'm on board with you now, because I think we could get groups of Taoists and non-Taoists, and we could take if we standardized their lifestyle to an extent. We said, all right, you all are going to practice Qigong 15 minutes a day, and you all are not going to practice it. And we're going to have you under the same environments, the same nutrition, same exercise, same exposure to people, and we're going to see what effect this has. I'm on board with you. I could, if you could do a study like that and show me that this had a difference, I'd be willing to go with you there.
15 minutes is a little too short, though. I add an hour of practice in my life.
That's fine. Yeah, and I'd be willing to let somebody who practices Qigong develop the study with what they would determine to be an appropriate amount of time. I'm on board with you. I think my whole point with this discussion was to get us on the same page with this discussion. I think we're getting there. Do you think my point of view makes a bit more sense now? I don't want to throw it out entirely. That's not at all my intention. I just want to know that if this is a factor, I want to give it. I want to make sure that we're not agreeing with it before it's been validated. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with those other factors. Qigong is about being in tune with the natural world around you and letting nature flow in its most natural form, for lack of better words. All of those are definitely aspects. A healthier lifestyle, all of that is part of getting closer to the Tao. So I like all other stuff.
Can I mention something?
The skepticism of. Oh,
I just wanted to mention that, earlier I said I did Kung Fu for quite a while. I did Qigong. I never believed in all that spiritual stuff. And I honestly did get something physically out of it. I did feel better. I was in better shape physically. And I didn't believe in any of that spiritual stuff. So I was getting the benefits that you're talking about without that belief. Is that possible? Do you think that that's something that you could get from it too?
People can take vaccines and not believe that they work, and they can still work,
Yeah, I think we're on a lot of the same page here. I think this is a really good and productive discussion. And I'm really happy that you are not our first, but you're one of our first callers today, because I think this really shows that we can have maybe a disagreement initially in how we think about certain aspects of the world. But I think a lot of times we agree more than we disagree, and we just need to get over some of those miscommunication aspects of it. But this has been really enjoyable.
It's been a great call. Yeah. And I have a lot more calls in the queue. I'd love to continue this call, but I do have to move on, Xavier. We would love to hear back from you, though, as you start doing more of this and start exploring what we've been talking about. Maybe give us a call back and update us, okay?
Sure, I'll try to document it now that Ben mentioned the journal. And I'll invite you guys
I
to the
love it.
sessions if you want.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. All right, Xavier, you have a good
Goodbye.
night tonight. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Now, by now, most of you watching know that the Truth Wanted store is up and running again. And we have been featuring a special limited item every month. So we've been having some really great ones for all the shows. This month's t-shirt, which is visible on the screen, should be, is Bigfoot saw me, but nobody believed him. All of the Truth Wanted merch and other ACA merch can be found at tiny.cc/merch ACA. I love that. That's a great t-shirt. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at that one. If you want to hear our content in audio only form, please visit tiny.cc/AEN podcast for all the latest ACA shows. I like to listen to them when I'm at work. When I'm in the office, I'll put them on while I'm working. All right. I want to take Noah next. Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
Ben?
we can do that. Yep.
All right. Noah's been waiting the longest, so we'll bring him on in. Here's Noah from Florida. Hi, Noah. How are you? Hello.
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. So it looks like you're finding meaning in your life now after deconverting. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So I was raised with a very religious mother, very religious, and sorry, I'm terrible with like live on air. I sound a lot better in the queue or whatever you call it. So one of the things that I noticed is that with me, so I believe, from a very early age, it's distilled in me, and I did find quite a bit of meaning. And as I got older, I found that my belief in God Himself started to diminish, and I tried to justify my belief more with, as they call it, belief in belief, saying that there's more benefit even if you don't believe in the magic. Having religion is a net gain, and as time went on, I saw more and more of, I don't know if I can say this, but the bullshit. And my belief, it got to a point where I didn't even want to really go to church anymore, because at the end of the day, it was just kind of sitting through people talking. It was like people talking about, going on about Pokemon, and when you only got maybe the first episode of Pokemon, going on about it, talking about it, philosophizing about it, and it just became too much for me. And but one of the things that I found is that there's so much framework within religion, such as social framework, set up, courtship, scripts, morality. I'm looking for more things to say, but I'm not really the best with talking and thinking, and especially not live on air. But what I found was that when you take away the faith and you take away the participation in organized religion, a lot of that also goes away. And it's kind of like, it's almost like you've got this clear path set out, and in so many ways, and now you're kind of almost, I guess you could say, walking in the dark, or you're making your own way. I guess it's a better way. You're making your own path. And I think your name was Student Dr. Ben, and that's pretty cool. I want to go to medical school as well, and actually it's funny, that was one of the things that first got me to thinking about things. Was there's somebody I really look up to, a doctor, and he's Jewish, and the man saved my life. And basically one of the first things that got the ball rolling was saying to myself, how can somebody who is such a great, amazing person be going to hell, not based off of their not based off anything he's done in his life, but because he doesn't pray to Jesus. And that's a diversion. So basically what I was just wondering is not just finding meaning, but almost like navigating through life, navigating through, the human experience, not to sound too much like a hippie there, but navigating through everything without, I guess you could say, the book that tells you why things are, how things work, what to do. So what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is I'm not sure the book does that. I think the book believes it does that. I think a lot of people who believe in that book think it does that, but I'm not sure the book does that. I've always thought that even with the book, even when I did have faith, I always felt like I was alone walking in the world anyway. Nobody has ever walked the same path you've walked. Nobody has ever breathed the same air you breathe. You are a unique person and your life is unique. And no matter what anybody has written into any book in the past, it's not going to be 100% the instructions for you to live your life. And I think you need to understand that your life is your life. If you're going to find meaning in it, you need to find that meaning. It's not going to be thrust upon you. Usually things will be thrust upon you. This was all kind of thrust upon me. I never expected to be in this seat, right? But you have to go out and make your own path. That the path that this book has laid out for you is at the very most just a few guidelines. It's not a real path in my eyes anyway. Ben, you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, and this is a really good question, and this is something definitely I want to talk with you about if you have dreams of being a doctor and if this is the path you're going to go down, because this is a question you're going to have to deal with entering medicine. And this is something that as I'm entering residency, I'm having to deal with as well, because I've faced kind of what you're talking about with religion, but medicine, it seems from the outside, it seems like an algorithm. It seems like you have these instructions to go off of, and well, if A happens, then I do B and I do C. That's not at all how medicine is. And the farther you get along in it, you learn that the instructions are it's a blank page. And what med school does is it teaches you the foundation of the sciences. It teaches you the foundation of medicine, and it teaches you how to think through the problem, knowing that there isn't a perfect instruction manual for you to go off of. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. The knowledge that you're going to get out there into a hospital setting, you're going to possibly be the only one there, and someone is going to be hurt or very sick, and nobody knows what to do about it. And maybe you don't know what to do about it, but you have to figure something out. And if you don't, they're going to get more hurt or they might die. And it's really scary. And I don't know how to make it less scary, because that responsibility it's incredible. It's also, it's an honor to be tasked with that kind of responsibility, because like, wow, someone trusts in me enough to do that. But sometimes I don't think I'm ready. I don't think any doctor really feels ready to handle that all the time. So I understand the fear. I understand where you're coming from with that. And I think that's the same thing when you're leaving religion. You thought that the world was this algorithm that you could follow these instructions, and you can't. The instructions are a blank page. So how do I approach the world? And I think you need to give yourself some grace and give yourself a little bit of a break, because we're all learning, and you're constantly going to be learning. All of us are, and you're going to mess up. That's just the name of the game. You're going to do something that, because you don't know how to handle a situation that you thought you had instructions for, and you actually don't. So you're going to mess up. You're going to hurt people. You're going to say the wrong things for minority communities. You're going to do that. But just know that the comfort, I guess, for me in that comes from the fact that we are learning. And there's no expectation ever for me to be perfect. And like the Bible that I once believed, I had so much shame and guilt because I was expected to be perfect and I couldn't be. And I think I carried that into my atheist life a little bit, but then I realized, like, that's impossible. Why am I so worried about meeting this unattainable goal when I can humble myself a little bit and say, yeah, I'm going to mess up on this. I don't have the perfect road going forward. I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to take every situation as it comes, and I'm going to say, hey, I think this is the right decision in the moment. And it might be. It might not be. And when it's not, you have to be patient with yourself and say, I did the best I could with the information I had at that time. And then you figure out how to make it right and you move forward. So it is scary. It is absolutely scary. And I don't want to diminish that it is. But I think the freedom that comes with truth, the freedom that comes with the responsibility of having agency in your decisions, I think it's worth it more so than being able to fall on this algorithm. So I don't know if that helped at all.
No, it does. And
I hope it did.
I don't know names, so the first man who was on the phone,
Kelley,
what he said about, I think he said the book, the Bible, it doesn't really tell you much about how to live your life, instructions so much. It was funny when he said that, because it made me realize, just like what I was saying about the institution of religion, it's the priest who tells you, the pastor, it's them who tell you these things. It's them you don't go to the book, you don't go to God, because he's not going to talk back for 99% of people. It's them you go to who then prescribe you the instruction, prescribe you the advice, and tell you what to do. And it's not so much based off of the book, but based off of their own interpretation of the book itself. And I think that's a very good way of looking at things, because, I certainly, and it's going to be this way with any sort of institution, any sort of philosophy. It does give you a lot of things that, I guess, when you stop believing in it, does definitely go away. But yeah, I do really appreciate what you said about it. And, you're going to have to find your own way anyway. And there's so many things in life, especially in the medical field, where, you're just going to have to. You're going to be thrown into the deep end, and, nothing's going to help you except for yourself.
That's right. And that's the whole key to life, really. I mean, the only person you can 100% rely on is yourself. And every decision you make is going to affect your life. So just be good and think about everything you do beforehand, because it's your path, and nobody else is going to walk it for you or lead you along it on the way, because nobody has that same path that you do. I really want to thank you for calling in, Noah, and waiting all that time to talk to us. You were great.
No,
I want you to call back and check in with us and let us know how everything's going with you. I do have a lot more calls to take, though, and I hate to rush you off, but I have to.
Real quick, you can email, if we can put up the email on the screen here. If you want to send me an email to my ACA email about kind of your journey through this and through your journey to medical school and the career of medicine, please let me know, and I'm happy to talk to you more in private about that.
Yeah, go ahead. And, let me pull up my notes real quick.
Yeah, and you can go back and rewatch the show too, and this will be up there.
And if you want, I can tell it to you, though. It's
don't want to
TV
is that
at Atheist.
Start again.
TV at atheist-community.org.
TV- at atheist community.
All right, Noah. And honestly, if I knew the way, I would take you home, honestly. And thanks for calling in. I do have to move on, though. We have a really good call. I know that Ben wants to take it, but let me do a little announcement here first, because if you can arrange to be in the Austin area, March 26th, this Sunday, this one coming up, this Sunday, you should consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. It is a lot of fun. I was down there in January. I had a freaking blast. If you can make it there, go. Talk Heathen is going to be hosted by Secular Rarity and Christy Powell. And the Atheist Experience will be hosted by Jim Barrows and Secular Rarity again. So we hope you can join us for that in the studio. If you can, wonderful. And I am going to go on to our next caller, Jeff in Kentucky. Hi, Jeff in Kentucky. You have a medical question about the Virgin Mary for Ben?
Wow. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I was recently watching a piece of a debate with R and Ra versus some other guy whose name escapes me at the moment, but all this other person kept asking is, have you ever seen an ape turn into a human being? Over and over again. So it got me thinking, yeah, we have never seen something like that. But and it's funny that the soon-to-be formerly student Dr. Ben mentioned House. It seems like I saw some kind of story similar on House where somebody had some, and forgive me if I use any kind of word or language that's wrong or incorrect, but somebody had some kind of hermaphrodite syndrome or whatever. Mm-hmm. And could it have been possible 2,000 years ago that this person outwardly appeared female and inwardly had some kind of male organ that could have
and self-fertilized
themselves pregnant?
So
and
there's a lot here, and there's actually, I've seen somebody try to publish something like this, which is interesting because there are cases where you can have differences in sexual development where you develop both male and female anatomy. However, we do not have any documented cases of self-fertilization. It is hypothetically possible. Under the right circumstances, you could see this. And I have seen people try to make the argument that this could be why the Virgin Mary was able to birth a child without another human. But we don't currently have any evidence that this is actually a thing that happened. Is it possible? Sure. There are some kind of issues I see with this. It'd have to be a very specific set of chromosomes, and probably mosaicism would have to be involved. So we do have evidence of people with ovotestes, where the gonads are both an ovary and a testis at the same time. Oftentimes people that have that are not producing gametes at all, or some people that have these are able to produce ova that are fertile but not sperm, or the other way around. So oftentimes they're not producing functional gametes of both types. And with the anatomy that ends up developing, there are cases where you can have both complete reproductive tracts, although this is a bit harder because you have the female tract is largely stimulated by the absence of the male genetics. So if you have SRY, which is the gene on the Y chromosome, which can be translocated in some people, which produces TDF, which is testes determining factor. And normally in the absence of TDF, you get ovaries. And of course, in the case we're talking about, you have somebody who has both half an ovary and half a testis. So they kind of have both. But other hormones come into play, such as anti-Mullerian hormone, which is going to dissolve the Mullerian ducts and keep the Wolffian ducts and all that. There are other structures involved. So you'd have to have the perfect combination to maintain all of these structures throughout embryologic development, which would be very rare. And then in order to produce a male offspring, you'd have to have some mosaicism to where the person, if Mary had both XX chromosomes and some of her cells were XY, and only some of her gametes were XY, if that happened, there's a lot of ways this could be possible. The question is, how statistically likely is it? And it's not. So I think it's a super, super fun thought experiment. What are your thoughts about that, either of you?
Jeff, go ahead. I am so glad Ben was here because I'm completely lost. All I could do is make a joke about this topic. So you go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I'm no doctor, or I have no medical training whatsoever other than I work in a nursing home. But it would take a lot of, from what you said, a perfect circumstances, and gosh, Jesus has been described as the perfect human being. So, I mean, maybe that's how he came around. And
right. And the awkward topic that nobody wants to address here is like, how did the self-fertilization happen? Because even if you have all the components there, how did the gametes get to where they needed to go in order to make that happen? And that adds a whole other interesting layer to this problem. But yeah, it's definitely very interesting, though.
Riding around on a donkey or something, could that have stimulated something somewhere? I mean, that's right in the right area. I'm not trying to be gross or funny, but I mean,
no, I did not. I didn't think you were.
You know,
from the jostling, right? Is that where your mind's
brain
going?
gets me thinking about this stuff.
I don't know that that's a possibility, but it definitely, as Ben said, it's definitely an interesting thought experiment. Notice I didn't make the joke too, because I didn't want to belittle the topic.
Right. Thanks for taking my call, guys. I appreciate it, and I'm sorry.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was a great.
But we do share a name, so that's a coincidence.
That was a great. That was a great call. Actually, that's a great question. I appreciate it. I am going to move on though. We have quite a few calls in the queue, but thanks so much. And if you do come up with an answer, call us back. Let us know what you come up with.
Absolutely.
Do you know that you can email Truth Wanted? We just did the ACA email, but you can get a hold of us here at Truth Wanted at truth@atheist-community.org or -community.org. You can reach out to the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org, the email we just gave you. And you can see what's been going on our website at atheist-community.org. There is also a Facebook group. Yes, it is. There's a totally cool Facebook group run by fans for the fans. And you can get there by going to tiny.cc/FBTWG to interact with the other fans. All right. And we do have a lot of interesting calls here today. I can't believe it. I'm going to go ahead and pick up with Simon, I think, from Germany. Is that okay with you, Ben?
Yeah, whichever calls you want to take. I'm just here for the ride.
All right. Hey, Simon, how you doing? Hello, Simon.
Yeah, hello. Can you
Hi, how are you? It says here you started to develop a belief in reincarnation despite being an atheist. You want to talk about that?
Yes. So I have become a hypocrite in a way. I don't believe in any gods. I would even call myself an anti-theist, and yet because I'm guessing because it's maybe like trauma management or something, I have started to get a belief in reincarnation. And even though I think I wouldn't bet $1 on it, but it still feels like it's real. So I logically can separate that this is not true, that we have no evidence for it, but I still have this feeling that it's true.
There is a religion without a deity that does believe in reincarnation. I mean, Buddhism is not doesn't believe in any gods. I mean, you can believe in gods as a Buddhist, but they definitely believe in reincarnation. So there are a lot of atheists out there that do believe in reincarnation, right? Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're not alone in the club, basically, is what I'm telling you.
I feel bad about having this belief because I know for a fact that I don't have the evidence to support it, and yet I feel like it is true, and it does somewhat negatively impact me in my life because, like I said, I have had some bad experiences, and it does somewhat fuel my idea that if I commit suicide, then I might have a better life later. And I don't really know what to do with that.
So I'm going to recommend here, especially if you're having some extreme thoughts like that and where you feel like you might be at risk or unsafe. Anytime you feel like that, you should definitely go to an emergency department, call an ambulance, call somebody. Make sure you're not alone. Make sure you have a place to go, because none of us would like that to happen to you. We want you to be safe, and it can be very scary to go through that on your own. So I hope you have a way to get emergency help if you need it. But also, there's an organization called Recovering from Religion, and they might be able to help you a lot with this, especially because they have people who are trained to talk people through these kind of situations, especially if you're saying that you don't know why you believe, but you feel like this is impacting your life. They have volunteers that can help you kind of work through those thoughts in a way that is verified and going to give you hopefully a safe way to work through all of that. I just want to make sure we got that out there, because I don't want anyone feeling like they're in an unsafe place.
Yeah,
It's just-
definitely get a hold of RFR, Recovering from Religion. They are great there. You might also, oh, you're in Germany. I don't think they have the secular therapy project over there, do they? But definitely get a hold of Recovering from Religion.
It's just, I wasn't raised Buddhist or anything, so I was actually raised Catholic. I don't really know, like, is this even the right place for me? Because, like, I'm not Buddhist. It's technically not a religion, right? So I don't know if that would be even the right place to ask.
Yeah, I know Richard Gilliver is really good about Buddhism, and I know he has particular views on Buddhism and whether or not it's a religion. If you want to talk specifically Buddhism, I recommend calling Talk Heathen when he's on, because he's a really good resource for that. But I'm kind of curious just about, like, what made this belief in reincarnation so important to you?
That was my next question.
Because of course, like, I have certain beliefs that I can't verify, and I don't know if they're true or not, but not many of them get me to a point where I want to ask people about them, or I want to know other people's beliefs on it. So kind of what brought you to this point where this belief is so important to you that you want to talk with us about it?
I was diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I have had, like, thoughts of wanting to be a woman for, like, since I was a child. And I think some of I still remember when I was, like, praying to, like, the Catholic God back then to, like, oh, make me a girl, please get me out of, like, this abusive environment that I'm in with my dad and stuff. And I think this might have, like, sprung out of that, so that
I think
like some sort of cope.
I think I talked to you the other day about something similar about gender dysphoria, and yeah, I get it. And I don't know if you're thinking about maybe if you were to reincarnate as somebody in your correct gender, in the correct body for you. And I could see why that would be appealing. Like, as a trans man, I get that feeling. And there are times when I look at my transition and I say, I wish that, I wish that I could have some experience like cis people. And I'm not, and I don't think that substituting reincarnation is really going to solve any of that.
No, I don't think so either. But I think you might have some legitimate concerns about your gender identity, and maybe talk to somebody that can help you work through that, a professional. I think you probably would do well with finding somebody to help you talk your way through that. And definitely do not count on reincarnation to fix your problem. Please do not count on that. That's not something that us or anybody else would want. I do have to end the call though. We're running out of time. I've got one more call to do, and I'd love to keep talking to you. I would love to have you check back in with us, Simon. You can always come to the fan-run Discord server, the Atheist Community of Discord, and we would love to talk to you there. There's a large trans community that would love to talk to you and help you work through this. So if you have a chance, come and join us there.
Thank you guys for your advice, and have a great rest of the stream. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Simon, for calling. Keep in touch with us. Let us know how you're doing. Whew.
I'm excited for this next one.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
Have you ever said to yourself, I really love the content the ACA creates, but I wish there was a way I could get it all the time? Well, then, you know what? We got you covered. You can check out our brand new 24/7 AXP TV live stream on YouTube. You can tune in at any time of the day to experience a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from the over 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. Watch or simply listen to your favorite hosts and discover some hosts you've never even heard of. One of my favorite hosts we don't see anymore is Martin. I think Martin was a very underestimated host. Visit tiny.cc/AXPTV to join in the fun. All right, we have another call here I want to take. And this is Blake in Washington. And he wants to know about fake studies or homeopathic medicine. So, hi, Blake. How you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing well. Hope you're well as well. Dr. Ben and Kelley, I wanted to just ask what your take is when people present you with fake studies as evidence of their claims, like in homeopathy. I can give you a short example. My mom was a lifelong diabetic, type 2, well, not lifelong, type 2 diabetes. And somehow she got convinced by a naturopath that blueberry leaves and cinnamon sticks were going to help her manage her sugar levels. And she was admitted to the hospital with a 750 sugar and died shortly after that. But she got taken in because they said, here are all these studies, you know? But when you look at the studies, they're awful. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I guess it's a kind of a mission of mine now. Oh, I'm sorry. There must be a delay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just kind of a mission of mine now to get people to look at PubMed and Google Scholar and actual studies as opposed to buying into the crap that these people are pushing as studies.
Right. I absolutely agree. And I think a problem too is that number one, this is unfortunate within the scientific community as well, is that the paywalls that a lot of these studies are behind that not everybody can get access to, which then if you can't get access to legitimate studies, then you're going to go to whatever articles are on the internet, and that might be from Dr. Oz, or it might be from some naturopath or whoever. So unfortunately, access to information is part of the problem. But then even when you get people to get access to legitimate studies, they're not written at a level for lay people to interpret them. Because you can show a chart that shows a correlation, and the majority of the public isn't going to understand what a p-value is. And you can show a correlation and not have a good p-value, and somebody's going to believe it because they just don't know. Like the questions that I'm going to ask for why a study should convince me are not going to even come up in somebody else's head who hasn't studied it. So I think kind of a lot of the issues here too are people. I think part of it too is the scientific community not knowing how to communicate to lay people. I think that needs to change. We need to get better at communicating at a level that is more understandable. We need to remove these paywalls. And also, I think people are wanting to buy into these ideas. 'Cause we talked earlier about black and white thinking and how people, like, cognitively, we desire to take the least amount of effort to get to an answer. And for a naturopath, this
Right.
is the least. They have to put no effort into saying, yes, this natural thing is going to cure you. Whereas my diagnostic thought process is a lot. Like the amount of work I have to go through to think of one little thing for somebody is a lot. So I think all these factors together kind of make this a problem.
Definitely.
But Kelley, what
And
are
I get
what are your
stuck
thoughts?
on things like trying to explain to people, like, this thing that you're showing me that you're calling a study has no methodology, doesn't show any number of participants, doesn't explain how they blinded the study, doesn't explain if it's been peer reviewed or anything like that. It just makes a claim.
Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of really bad studies out there too, and you'll often see that these bad studies aren't coming from the same source as the people selling the cure. Right? I as an example, I remember looking at I had somebody was telling me about how magnets were good for your health, and sent me a link to a study that was done by a company who was selling the magnetic jewelry for your health. And I actually read the study because, I'm gonna look at it, and they had a group of 3 people and no control. So they gave 3 people magnetic bracelets, and all 3 people said they felt like they were getting better. So this person actually thought that was a real scientific study.
Yeah.
And you got to yeah, right. You have a problem, like just like Ben was saying, is people don't understand how the really good studies work, because they're done in a different language. Every profession has its own language, and unless you know that language, you're going to get lost. So we need to make these things more accessible and more readable by the public, I think.
Right.
Ben,
And
you
I
think?
and Blake, something that if you're going to be talking to other people about this, I think a tactic you can use, just like if you listen back to the call about Qigong, like you can take that kind of approach. Like if you have somebody that believes in certain naturopathic or homeopathic remedy, have them, like, number one, ask them to describe their understanding of how this treatment works, because then you can gauge where they're coming from, what they believe the influencing factor is. So ask them that, and then if they give you studies, like, cool, at least like have their baseline of where they're coming from, what their perspective is. And then you can do that little exercise that I did, like say, okay, so this is the result you think you got from this treatment. What other factors could be involved? What other things could have caused you to feel this way? And like have them make it a collaborative thing, like, because people oftentimes will listen if they're the ones thinking of the solution to the problem. So if you go through the problem, say, okay, what are 3 things that could also have this same effect? And they could give you some other things, and then say, how could we determine which one of these is correct? And let them come up with the study on their own. And then there you go. They've come up with a study, and then maybe they'll understand the rigor that needs to put into it. So that's a tactic I like to use. It doesn't work for everybody. But as long as they're willing to talk with you about it, I think it's a really fun way to engage in the conversation.
I think I agree with you. I think where I get tripped up is I still have a little bit of anger, and I come back as you are actually killing people with this kind of crap, especially when it's a practitioner.
Right. No, and that's
Right.
and that's true. And
And
I will
especially
say,
because of your experience too, right? I'm sorry, Ben, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh no, you're good. I think I have a little bit of a delay right now, but even with that, like, my tactics, I would take different tactics with a practitioner than I would with a person just buying into the ideas. Like, I think that the gentle approach that I like to take, that's more with the person buying into it, because they're not at fault. I don't think that those people are at fault, and I want to be more gentle with them. With a practitioner, No, anybody that says they are a professional, I will hold them to the exact same standard that I would hold a medical doctor. And I'm going to ask them the same questions, the same, I'm going to demand the same p-values, the same everything. And I think in that case, when they understand the liability that they hold and that they don't know the answer, I definitely take a more aggressive approach with those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we help at all, Blake?
Yeah, I think so. It's the aggressive approach with the naturopaths that I get frustrated with, because they aren't accountable to anybody. I mean, there's no board that's going to remove their license. There's no,
Right. That's why
nobody is going to shut down their business, or.
That's why I ask them the
go on
questions I
killing
do.
people.
Like there's a method in medicine that may or may not be as productive as we think it is in medical education. But like, no joke, we call it pimping. It sounds terrible. But I tend to use the method because it's a way to humble the person you're having a conversation with. So if you're holding them up to the standard of a doctor, which like in this case, like if you're a resident and you don't know everything, you're not going to know everything as a resident, but you're attending, is going to ask you those questions, rapid fire questions, ask you what your thought process is to get through this. And kind of the goal is, number one, to understand your thought process, how you are actually thinking through the problem. And then part of it is to shame you enough so that you go learn about it. Because then you understand that, hey, I don't actually know enough. And that's a tactic that I'll use. And you'll see this sometimes on calls where I'll rapid fire people some questions about physiology, because if you're going to claim to be an expert, I'm going to hold you to that standard, and I'm going to ask you questions that I would ask an expert, and you just embarrassed yourself. And I think while I don't like the embarrass tactic for everybody, I think it's very harsh and can be counterproductive. For some people, it's necessary, because I think it's necessary for the public to understand that this person should not be trusted with their medical care. And so some cases like that, I am totally on board for embarrassment.
Good call. I really appreciate the input, you guys. I thank you so much. And I hope I'm going
to agree with you, Blake. This was a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciate calling in. We're over time right now, though, so I am going to let you go. If you'd like to call back in and check in with us, let us know how your studies have been coming along in this. We'd love to hear from you in the future. So, all right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Now, and before I do anything else, we got a super chat from James Call, and he has given us $5 and said, hey, I got here late, but damn you, SDB, for dragging my old frazzled brain back to embryology and developmental biology classes.
Oh, man. Yeah. Anybody that has taken embryology knows that is a doozy of a class. It's probably one of the worst classes, not worst as in like content-wise. I think it's fascinating stuff, but it is one of the hardest classes you will ever take in medical school. And I think I noticed too, James is a new member, if I got that right.
Yes, he is.
Thank you for becoming a channel member. That is amazing.
Thank you very much, James. And with that, I think we're going to wrap it up a little bit. Have you said to your, thank you, Ben, for coming? I guess totally got lost. Both my brain cells got stuck together. Where can we find you to learn like you were talking about your YouTube show? Let's plug it.
Yeah. So tomorrow you can find me on Medical Myths on Student Dr. Ben on YouTube. That's going to be at, I'm on Pacific time. So it's 12 p.m. Pacific time. It's 3 p.m. Eastern time, talking about chiropractic medical boards. But you can also find me on Talk Heathen. I'm a main host over there. So I think the next time I'm on is in the middle of April sometime, or maybe early April. I think I'm on twice in April. So come hang out with me on Talk Heathen. And I don't know the next time I'll be on other shows, but you can find me all over the ACA. I'm around.
Thank goodness we can find you all over the ACA too. I always love watching you, Ben. Stick around, because we are going to be hanging out in the Atheist Community of Discord for a short after show. You can join us there at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. A lot of I wouldn't say a lot of the hosts, but quite a few of the hosts of the ACA hang out there. So you can come and join us anytime during Discord and maybe catch some of us to talk to. And remember, we want the truth. We want you to tell us the truth. And our prompt for this week is to invent a useless superpower. Put it down in the comments. We'd love to see it. We're going to pick the 3 best answers and tell everybody about them next week. And if I can stop being so tongue-tied, I will say goodbye. And that's it for tonight. I'm your host, Kelley Laughlin. And remember, always remember to keep wanting the truth. Goodbye, everyone.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between the Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.